Before you colour your hair, stop and think. What if you could protect your hair as you colour? Now you can, with Excellence Cream from L'Oreal. A nurturing cream rich in moisture. Excellence Cream protects your hair. It doesn't drip and really covers grey. What I love is the colour, the healthy feeling, like it's full of moisture.
Excellence Cream, the protective cream colorant from L'Oreal.
It's a cream. Think about it. Time and tide, we are told, wait for no one. And whilst turning back the tide may at this moment seem beyond us, we'd like to think that softening the visible traces of time comes as second nature. New Nivea Visage Anti-Wrinkle Cream can help smooth away the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, effectively softening the traces of time. The Anti-Wrinkle Cream from Nivea Visage.
Can we take that yoghurt back, Mum? Oh, it doesn't look like it. What about the fabric conditioner? No, that's too good to go back as well.
Safeway are so confident you'll like their own brand products that they'll give you a refund and a replacement if you don't.
There must be something in the house Mum's not happy with.
Morning.
Talk about comedy timing.
Refund and replace at Safeway.
It's easy to get your white spotless first time on TV. But can you do it at home? That's the on-the-spot challenge for Dad's Automatic.
Good morning. How are you? Listen, what sort of problems do you have with your whites?
The children's food stays on them. You know, spaghetti and sauce and...
How do you fancy the on-the-spot challenge with Dad's Automatic?
I know, yeah. That's about the dirtiest thing.
Right, look at the state of that.
Spaghetti, tomato sauce.
My favourite as well.
Yeah.
So do you think Dad's Automatic will get it out in one wash?
You can have a go, can you?
OK, let's try them. See you in 45 minutes and a cup of tea.
Right, here comes the dungarees. Remember the state they were in? You see?
Come clean. They have, yes, they've come very clean.
You sound so surprised.
Well, I am surprised, because I didn't think they'd come out totally. I thought there'd still be little bits left in. But no, they're really nice. Dead chuffed with them, yeah.
You're dead chuffed.
Why don't you challenge Dad's Automatic and see if you get more of your whites spotlessly white first time. And it's still at the right price.
You took Peyton out of the will and then you lied to me about it. How can I ever trust you again?
She might be in jail.
You made a mistake, Edward.
But she can still get him.
How do you plead?
I thought I actually saw steam coming out of Burton's ears.
Your mother's gone too far. Or maybe our father has.
Quit saying our father. Blood tests don't lie.
I know I screwed things up between us. I'm sorry.
Don't trust him, Reese. Stick with his brother.
I hate you.
I love you.
Here we go again. Savannah continues next Friday at 9.
We get all kinds in here.
Murderers?
Yeah, people who kill for all kinds of reasons.
Lust.
Revenge.
Drugs.
Power.
Plain old hate. And then they come in here and they sit across from us at this table. Some of them are stupid.
Uh-huh.
Some of them are crazy.
Uh-huh.
Some of them are mean.
That's right.
But none of them are boring.
If you had their job, maybe you'd be weird too. Homicide is back Monday at 10 on 4.
Birds and potato waffles, they're waffly versatile. They go with cheese, chili, chicken, burgers, fish fingers, the fish fingers, eggs, ham, eggs on, bacon, lamb chop.
They're real potato waffles.
Birds and potato waffles, they're waffly versatile.
Bird's eye crispy chicken dippers. Well, everybody's heard about the word. The bird's eye chicken dippers, the word. I say the bird's eye chicken dippers, the word. Well, don't you know about the word? It's chicken dippers, ain't you heard? I say the bird's eye dippers.
Only chicken worth dipping passes the bird's eye.
For the world's longest roller coaster and the totally terrifying Falls of Terror, scream down to Lightwater Valley, then hang on and totally let go.
It needn't be hell to cut out smoking. Now Nicotinell have launched Cool Mint and Fruity Original. 2 delicious flavored nicotine gums, both tasting better than you'd ever expect. And only £2.45 for a trial pack. So if you're determined, there's no tastier way to beat the craving. It needn't be hell with Nicotinell.
You and your home are unique, so Direct Line tailor-make a home insurance policy just for you. We note the exact location of your home, the security arrangements, the age of the house, even the age of the owners. By taking into account things like these, in one short call, we can offer the precise cover you need without paying more than you want. Call Direct Line on 0113 246 8877.
Got a kitchen, got a pan, got vegetables, got a pan, got a fridge, got no plug, got a sweet and sour meal maker. Blah, blah, just add chicken, pork or vegetables. Got a generous meal for 2. Chop, add meal maker, simmer and serve.
New one-pan meal makers from Crosse Blackwell. Now there's a thought.
Some riddles are never meant to be solved.
You know Morse's law. There's always a 50-50 chance that the man who found the body did the deed.
Some clues are never meant to be cracked.
I do try to be just a little bit cleverer than the solver, you see.
Some mysteries dare you not to get involved.
But who the hell wants to know what we want to know? We do.
The Solution, Inspector Morse, Wednesday at 8 on Yorkshire.
This is Yorkshire Television on this Friday, the 9th of August. And now, just after 10 o'clock, the day's news.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Crash puts privatization and safety under scrutiny. Faltering Yeltsin sworn in as fighting rages in Chechnya. Tension in Londonderry as the marches begin. And countdown to the biggest rock concert of them all. Good evening. Engineers began lifting wrecked railway carriages tonight from the main line near Watford after yesterday's crash. A woman passenger was killed. Investigators are still waiting to question the train drivers, who are both among the 13 injured still in hospital. There is already some information from signal monitoring equipment and from the black box recorders on the trains themselves. Today, survivors talked to being thrown all over the place in the crash, like peas in a can. Howell Jones reports from the scene.
Clearing the crash site of wreckage tonight, the debris of an accident rescue workers here believe came so close to being much, much worse. A heavy lifting crane slowly moved the first of 4 30-ton carriages off the tracks, badly damaged in the few seconds it took for the trains to collide. Ruth Holland died in the collision. She was 54 and was travelling home to Hemel Hempstead. Rescue teams could scarcely believe that the number of casualties was not higher. The modern design of carriages might have saved many lives. One survivor let other passengers use his mobile phone to call their families as they waited for help together in the minutes after the crash.
The next thing, there was the most almighty bang. And I guess, well, again, like many people, I just got thrown all over the place. And in fact, the carriage I was in, or the compartment I was in, which was right at the front, immediately behind the driver, wound up on its side. In spite of everything, I feel remarkably well and extremely fortunate.
Those who've witnessed similar rail crashes agree that this accident came within feet of catastrophe. Carriages full of commuters left perched on an embankment.
The two coaches are placed very precariously on the edge of the embankment, and if they had fell down and come down, the injuries to people within the coach where the passengers were would obviously be much worse.
Crash investigators will be relying on eyewitness accounts, but also data collected from signal boxes and the train's own equivalent of black box flight recorders.
Those recorders should give us information on the control signals that were made and received from both the rolling stock and the signalling system.
But the priority here is to unblock the West Coast line. Dozens of trains would usually use this track every day, a main artery in Britain's rail network. When the crash site has been cleared, engineers will begin the task of replacing damaged track. Their target is to have trains running again on this line in time for the rush hour on Monday morning. Howell Jones, News at 10, Watford.
Questions raised by the crash were still being asked today. How did the two trains come to collide head-on? How was such a crash possible? And could anything have prevented it? Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Harry Smith.
This video obtained by ITN gives a driver's eye view of the approach to the crash scene. After rounding the bend, the driver of the packed commuter train would have had little time to react when he saw another train on this crossing in front of him. The other train was performing a maneuver like this, crossing from one line to another, something done routinely hundreds of times a day on the rail network. But last night the result was catastrophic. It could be days before investigators find out why, but what's already clear is that this should never have happened. This was the exact spot where the accident occurred. The empty train travelling south to Euston was crossing a northbound track onto a second southbound track. The northbound commuter train was going in the opposite direction when the two trains crashed. Investigators are now focusing their attention on the signals to discover if they were faulty or if one of the drivers went through a red light. After the Clapham rail crash in 1988, when 35 people died, an inquiry recommended fitting trains with ATP, a system which automatically applies the brakes if they go through a red signal. It's fitted in other countries but has been ruled out here because it's too expensive.
It would cost the best part of £1 billion to install ATP on the mainline network in this country. And there simply aren't enough people killed on the trains to make that kind of investment worthwhile. If you're going to invest £1 billion on the railways, the safest thing you can do with it is to buy 300 new trains.
The Watford crash has rekindled the debate over privatisation, and in particular its effect on the outdated track and signalling on the main West Coast line.
Because of the privatisation programme, money simply has not been put into this line, and it's about 30 years out of date.
But the government says privatisation has improved safety.
For collisions and derailments, there's an improvement over the previous 3 years, so there's no evidence to substantiate these allegations that are being made that safety has deteriorated.
There was one safety measure which worked last night. Since Clapham, new carriages have been designed to absorb impact and protect passengers. Had the old-style carriages been in use, it's likely many more would have died. Harry Smith, News at 10.
Boris Yeltsin was duly sworn in as Russian president for a second term today. His appearance and his sometimes slurred speech did little to reassure those of his countrymen who wonder if he's still up to the job. He did, however, address his most pressing problem tonight, the fighting in Chechnya. He said the conflict must be settled by negotiation. Our Moscow correspondent Julian Mannion was the only British correspondent admitted to Mr. Yeltsin's inauguration.
Behind the pomp, there was tension. The ceremony had been cut from 90 minutes to half an hour, but the question remained, would Boris Yeltsin be well enough to get through it? Yeltsin walked out stiffly, and for the first 3 minutes he stood with a fixed expression, completely impassive. When he spoke, it was to recite the oath of office, and some of the words came out blurred. It was only when he received the presidential chain that I saw him break into a broad smile. Then he made his slow exit into the wings. It has been the briefest possible ceremony, but it has served its purpose. Boris Yeltsin is confirmed as president for a second term and can now appoint a prime minister, who in the event of Yeltsin's incapacity or death would take over the reins of power. It is Viktor Chernomyrdin who will remain prime minister, And at a later reception, Chernomyrdin toasted Boris Yeltsin's health. The president looked pleased and took a little champagne himself, though he returned the glass after just one sip. In Chechnya, there is little for the Russian leadership to drink to, as their army goes on taking serious casualties in the battle for Grozny. In one deserted street, a burnt-out Russian armored car. Nearby, the scattered bodies of a dozen soldiers. The rebels control the area and today seized part of the government headquarters complex in the center. Some Russian journalists are trapped there, and on TV they've been making desperate appeals for help, in which the sounds of fighting can be heard. In villages near Grozny, rebel supporters are doing their best to send in reinforcements and ammunition through the Russian lines. Some infiltrators that the Russians have captured were shown bound and blindfolded, heading by helicopter to an uncertain fate. But the Russians have little to crow about. A military source today described the situation as totally out of control. And tonight in the Kremlin, Boris Yeltsin declared tomorrow a day of national mourning for the victims of the Chechnya fighting. Julian Mannion, News at 10, Moscow.
Julian Mannion joins us live now from just outside the Kremlin. Julian, you were in that hall today and you saw Mr. Yeltsin during the election campaign. How has he changed?
Well, it has been a marked change. At the start of the election campaign, I did in fact have the opportunity to conduct a brief interview with him. And at that time in Yekaterinburg, he seemed to be clear and alert. And later in the campaign in Rostov, as you may have seen, he did in fact get up on a stage and dance vigorously with astonishing vigor to rock music. Today, I had again a chance to look at him quite closely, and he appeared, I must say, to be a man in discomfort and even perhaps pain. His face was really fixed, immobile, with a slight, almost grimace there. And he seemed to be a man who was determined to get through this ceremony, but really, as I say, in some discomfort.
Julian, on Chechnya, talk again tonight of truce and reconciliation and all that, but this is really a running sore, isn't it, for the president?
It's a running sore, it's a deep sore, it's a very painful sore. Tomorrow is a day of mourning, and they will be mourning an unknown but large number of casualties, Russian army casualties and, of course, Chechen civilians. And really, it's very difficult at the moment to see an end of it, because despite the call for negotiations that Boris Yeltsin made, there remains unyielding resolve within the Russian government.
Julian Mannion, thank you. Hundreds of police were in the streets of Londonderry tonight, where nationalists staged the first march of the weekend, which threatened to explode into trouble. It was steered away from a loyalist estate and passed without any serious incident. Still to come tomorrow, the Loyalist Apprentice Boys Parade. From Londonderry, Jonathan Monroe reports.
The Bogside residents led the way. Their estate left virtually empty as several thousand Catholics converged on the city centre of Derry, after earlier agreeing to reroute their marchers away from what they called contentious areas. There was a heavy police presence. Don't rise to their bait, the crowd was told. Soon they'll all be on the dole. Sinn Féin's Martin McGuinness delivered a familiar Republican cry, "Enough is enough," and from the Bogside leader, an offer to call off tomorrow's nationalist march, but with a condition attached for the Protestants.
Unless the apprentice boys call off their contentious feeder marchers in the morning, we will be asking people to reassemble at Free Derry Corner at 2 p.m.
But there seems little mood on the Loyalist estates to change any of the apprentice boys' parading routes. Tonight they'll burn bonfires here in honour of the marchers. They claim changing their plans now is simply impractical.
It's a very easy statement to make, but it's beyond the powers of the leaders of the apprentice boys in the city to call those marches off. It's up to the local clubs and the police on the ground to make the right decision tomorrow morning.
Catholic Bogsiders living in the shadow of the closed-off city walls spent the day protecting their houses. Their leaders had carefully planned their conditional offer to cancel tomorrow's rally, clearly designed to put the onus back onto the unionists and make themselves appear more flexible. Indeed, within minutes of the proposal, Sinn Féin were making themselves available